So past that, we want to get deeper into the review process if we have time and if it's that important. We can find ways to basically execute the system even though it's not executable by role playing or doing metrics or simulation or whatnot. So let's look at a few of those options. So one of the ways we can do that is by designing or creating, if we don't have them already, along the way, analysis models and design. We want to basically get those things out there and then try and execute them in a way where we look at the models, we imagine scenarios, and we see how the model responds to scenarios. We come up with models to represent the system, but the models are only accurate if we test those models against what data we're seeing, what scenarios we're seeing within the system. So we need to try those out. We need to make those make those be executable. So we want to go through and find out what's wrong with the model, what's missing from the model, by essentially taking some inputs, walking it through the elements of the model, and seeing if we get the expected outputs. And that's normally easier to do when I have a bunch of people around the table that can help contribute. In a designer's mind, it's really easy to just kind of assume, okay, this is the way it works. But if the model isn't explicit about it, and if we don't have other eyes to say, well, what do you mean by that? Or where does this happen? Then often we can just continue on and not find those issues until implementation. And plus, it gives us a sight to what's not there. It's really hard for an individual to know what they don't know, or to assume away an abstraction that they think can be done in one way. And sometimes just the question of, well, how do you plan on encrypting? How do you plan on securely sending? How do you plan on storing this information across multiple databases? So by the way, did you know this database isn't accessible by this system? Things like that. Those are things that come up that you don't know, that hopefully you can go through this role play approach. One of the ways to do this and execute this stuff is to have each person around the table of a review take on some element of the model. So, hey, you're going to be the database, and I'm going to be the front end, and you're going to be the rules in the middle, and let's see how it works. So when somebody clicks buttons on me, I send data to you, and you look it up in the database, and then does this work out? Am I doing all the things I need to do? Does it make sense? Do I have the data I need? What am I missing? And again, the better you can try and represent the system you are and not fill in the gaps, the more accurately you're able to go through and exercise the model. So you start up the review by being the system, and you each talk about the stuff you have, and maybe you actually write down the data items you're storing at a given time. Where did you get the username and password for the database from? For the database, how do you know what the appropriate time to refresh your indices are and things like that? When are you going to do optimization and pieces like that? You can talk about that. I mean, because what I'm thinking there is performance. What is the down window by which you can be less available? Is that going to happen at 2 in the morning, or do I have to actually bring the system down to let you do that? Questions like that. So this rolls around big when we get into testing as well, because often test cases are just assumed to work. And it's normally quite easy to have a test case that you assume works that you don't find out until you executed it and you wrote up a bug. And then you have to go off and prove that the system's doing the right thing, the test case is doing the wrong thing. And that can be very contentious and slow and late in the project where it's really critical to be finished. So normally you want to try and take your test cases and really simulate the simulator as well. Have some reviewer pretend to be the unit under test, and other reviewers are executing the tests for that. And so maybe the developer, the one who's building it, can be the unit under test, the system, and say, wait, I don't do that, or wait, I don't have that screen, or I don't go to that screen next, and give that critical eye. Often developers are busy doing design, doing coding, and don't want to spend time paying attention to the tests. But that's a great place to better understand how other people interpret how the system's going to be built. It's a great place to check out your design and to make sure those test cases are accurate early on, instead of letting it get late in the game and having to fight it when you're probably viewed to be at fault. So within all that, you have to understand, as a reviewer, you have to have good etiquette. If you're going to find something wrong with the system, try and be constructive about it. Don't just say, I don't like that. I had an architect one time who came to me and just said, I don't like the way this thing's named. Okay. What's wrong with it? I don't know. I just don't like it. So we need to be constructive. We need to give new ideas. We need to come up with solutions, or express in more details of what your concerns are if you don't have an answer. Just say, hey, I'm worried about this. What do you think? Be open to the fact that you might not, understand everything. Don't overtake the ownership of the system. This person who's the author is still the one who has to produce this, who has to be responsible for this. And so you want to also consider the priorities of your comments. Yes, you have comments. Yes, you want to get them out there. But is it the most important thing at that time? Can you just write it down and come back to it? Within your own comments, don't start with trivial stuff. Start with the big things that you're really concerned about. Certainly within that, ask. Don't just say, I can't accept this. Don't command. There's time to be graceful inside of that. You can always escalate outside of the meeting if things aren't being heard. And then ask questions. Don't assume. Don't assume the person knows what they're talking about. They might be new to this system. They might not know certain things. Hey, did you know that this database is only available from 9 to 5? No, I didn't know that. It's going to screw up my design. Glad you brought that up. Certainly think of alternatives. Don't just be I worked one time with a security team who said, I don't like this, it's not secure. Well, what would be secure? I don't know. I'll tell you when I see it. I'll tell you what I like. That's terrible. You're an expert. You should be able to give advice or just say, I'm not sure yet, but let's keep working. Maybe I'll help you work on that. And so remember the scope of the project. Remember the goals of the project. Remember that you are reviewing something that's part of some other work, and you can't just throw all that out in order to get what you want. The flip side then is the author. As the author, you need to be ready to accept recommendations. You need to be ready to accept feedback. You need to set your pride, set your ego to the side, and be objective for the feedback that's coming in. People are trying to improve the product. They also might not understand. They also might need some explanation. Feel confident in your work. Explain it, but don't look for everything as being a criticism, or even if it is, maybe you need to accept a little bit and then understand that you can figure out what really needs to happen later on. You're also not without resources. People want to see this project go forward. So when you do have issues that are needed to be fixed, look for other places you might need to fix them. You might have made a mistake that needs to be done in several parts of the system. So listen to the suggestions. Look for ways you can improve the artifact, because they really are trying to make you do this better, and then also make you a better employee, a smarter person at building that artifact to begin with. So understand that reviews are a really great way to produce good work. It's the goal of the review is not to collaboratively design. If you want to do that, you set up designs work, but it gives a way to basically gives you a sanity check that everybody agrees this is the right path. It gives you checklists to go through and understand everything's going on that's going on, and then it gives you a big set of viewpoints to check in that you're doing the right thing across the board. You're not part of the review is everybody as the community taking responsibility for this product. Yes, you're the one who probably have to make the changes. Yes, you're the one who probably, but at the same time, after you've done that, you have the backup. Hey, these folks reviewed it, and we all agreed this was the right decision. This is the right way to approach. This is the right way to do this thing. So you have to watch out for not doing a big, long meeting where everybody designs it, but at the same time, you have the collaboration of everybody you would have if you did sit around for weeks and weeks to do design by committee. So that's a feel for the process. So you take the people, you take the artifacts, you take the process together, and hopefully you see how we can create better products, even when we can't test them dynamically, when we put rigorous reviews. The goal is not just to have somebody look at it and sign off on it. The goal is to make a better solution and better folks along the way as